lot of people ask me, out of all the countries that you've visited, which is your favorite country? I usually have three answers: Vietnam, Ukraine, and Colombia. But compared to my life here in Poland, there are so many things about that country that I really miss and love. Now that I've had a little time to heal from the divorce and everything that happened to me, I look back very fondly on my time in Colombia. There's a lot of good things and bad things about Colombian culture. So some of the bad things that I talk about with my friends here, in Colombia, there's this really sad mentality. If I'm doing business with somebody and they cheat me, it's not the criminal's fault, it's my fault for not knowing any better. And I think that has caused overall mistrust in other people in the social fabric. But the positive from that, Colombians are so family oriented. And I really admired that a lot, how Colombians were always talking to their parents. They had immense respect for their parents if both parents were in the household, which in Colombia is very rare. That was the thing that impacted me the most when I was in Colombia. Coming from a Chinese background, family for us is important, but it's a lot different. It's funny, I was on a call with my sister and I was like, hey, put dad on the phone. And then my sister told me, oh no, he's busy and he says hi. And that's just how our culture is. It's just very difficult for us to show love and affection. And that's why I ultimately married my ex-wife and got stuck in that whole entire church and everything, because they just showed me so much love and affection. And it was kind of like a drug for me coming from a Chinese background. And it's still something like up until now, even though there were some moments where it was a little overwhelming, I still really thought it was beautiful. I also really love how nice and friendly the people were. A lot of Polish people in my comments get mad at me for saying that Polish people are rude. People in Ukraine are so nice and friendly compared to Polish people. I've had enough experiences here in Poland where workers will just say something extremely rude. In Colombia, it feels like people are always super friendly and super nice and super welcoming, especially if you speak Spanish. As soon as people found out that me as a Chinese guy, that I spoke Spanish, people went crazy in Colombia, and I always really loved that. You know, maybe in the big cities, it's a little more dangerous and people aren't as trustworthy, but I remember that's why I loved Manizales so much, because the people in Manizales were generally a lot more well-mannered and very helpful, and it was very safe, and they were just so nice. I knew all of my neighbors and I knew all the clients that came into my restaurant, and I'm sure that directly correlated to my knowledge of the language. Something that I didn't appreciate while I was in Colombia was how good the weather is. In Colombia, the weather is pretty much the same the whole entire year round, with some seasons being a little more rainy than others. Medellín, of course, has some of the best weather that you've ever seen, but in the coffee region, the weather is also fantastic. I really like the Manizales weather. You know, there were some times where it rained a lot, but when it was sunny, oh my gosh, that city was perfect and it was beautiful. I like living here in Four Seasons, but one of the sad things about Poland, right now that we're in summer, the weather's fantastic and people are lively and it's great, but during the winter, it's extremely miserable, and it's like that for maybe 4 to 6 months out of the year. Or did you get something a little more consistent in Southeast Asia and in Colombia, closer to the equator? I appreciate that a lot more now after going through a Polish winter. Colombia in December is one of the best places ever. It's like their summer vacation, but they also have a lot of holidays and they also have Christmas.
Happy Christmas.
So growing up in the US, Christmas for us was always cold. Experiencing Christmas in Colombia, where it's warm and the weather is perfect, everything is sunny, it's a totally different vibe. It's something that I think a lot of people have to experience. And of course, the women. Now, this is kind of a double-edged sword, because yes, Colombian women are still some of the sexiest that I've seen in the world. I would say that Colombian women do age very well compared to, for example, like just white people in general just don't age the best. But I do miss how approachable the women were. That Paisa accent gets me every single time. And it's so beautiful, the way that they walk, the way that they smell, the way that they dress. Colombian women are still gonna be very beautiful to me, even though long term, I think a Slavic woman would be a better fit. One of my favorite things about Colombia was nature and how biodiverse that country was. A lot of Colombians haven't traveled outside of their country. Why do you need to when you have beach and desert and mountains and the Amazon rainforest? Colombia is the second most biodiverse country in the world, and it has almost every single landscape that you can think of. It's something that you can't really say about other countries in the world. Colombia has so much to offer, from the diversity in wildlife, people, food. Colombia is such a bio-rich and culturally rich country. One of my favorite things about Manizales was just being able to drive through the mountains. It's so hard not to believe in God when you see how much much beauty Colombia has as a country from the first time you get out of the Medellín airport tunnel and then you look into the city. To this day, I'm so in love with nature in Colombia, and I don't think I've ever been to a country that has had it quite to the same level. So if you guys are interested in moving to Colombia, I highly recommend my moving to Colombia course. The problem with a lot of other YouTube creators is that they only really focus on Medellín, but that's just such a small bubble of what Colombia really is. Colombia is such a beautiful country. There are so many things to see, and all the different regions have so many different things to offer. So I made my course talking about all the different cities so you guys can find the best place in Colombia for you. The first lesson talking about all the different cities is free, so you guys can look into that. If you guys want to reach out for a consultation, feel free to contact me here. So a lot of people complain about Colombian food, but I'm gonna be real, I really miss it. I think Colombian food is one of those things where over time it slowly gets better. And I would admit that food in Medellín is not the best, but once people branch out of the big cities, you'll realize Colombian food is so diverse. The produce and the meat is so fresh compared to many other places in the world. Colombian avocados are still gonna be undefeated, super big, and being able to buy avocados on the street. I'm still not the biggest fan of the arepa, but if you think about all the food from the coast, you know, the fish, arroz con coco. Bandeja paisa for me is alright. The frijoles are alright as well, but lentejas, in my opinion, are quite good. All of the Colombian soups are super good. I miss sancocho, ajiaco, cazuela de mariscos. God, Colombian food is so good. And the meat is so simple. They didn't put a lot of flavoring on it, but because the quality was so high and you can get a nice big steak for like 10 bucks. Oh man, I miss that so much. When Colombians used to put cheese in hot chocolate, or they would put banana in soups, you know? It's those little things that I didn't like, but it's so Colombian, and I miss all those little like idiosyncrasies about living there. I miss how cheap everything was, right? I remember when I first got to Colombia, I would get 12 chicken wings for like $6 with delivery. Here in Poland, delivery, you're gonna be spending at least like $10 to $12. Maybe that's just general inflation, because I think things are more expensive in Colombia as well. I think a similar cost of living is like Thailand, Vietnam is also super cheap. And here in Poland, it's a little more expensive. I think the general cost of living now is maybe like $1,500, maybe a little less, depends on how I budget it. So something that I really miss about Colombia is the music and the dancing. I think an argument can be made that, especially in Medellín, you can kind of get sick of all the reggaeton playing everywhere because it's kind of the same music: reggaeton, vallenato, salsa, bachata. I loved seeing people dancing in the street, for example, like when I was in Cali, because here in Poland, the music is not that good and the people are just generally a lot more stiff. So you can go to the club and yeah, people kind of dance to pop music or just like techno stuff, which I find quite boring. Every time I went back to Colombia, just the reggaeton and salsa, and people were always dancing. It was just such a vibe. In my opinion, because I grew up in Los Angeles, I still miss hip hop and R&B because that's my music. Reggaeton and all that Latin music just makes you want to get up and move and dance, and it just makes you happier and more joyful. That's something that I've missed out a lot in the rest of my travels. Because I built my channel in Colombia, I had a little bit of street fame. Obviously towards the end, especially in Medellín, it turns into safety issues because I kind of walked around feeling like I had a target on my back. It was nice towards the end being stopped on the street. I think I've met maybe 100 plus of my subscribers, and I've done consultations with like 200 people watching my videos, and seeing that impact and how people move to Colombia because of my videos. There's no price to that kind of influence and that feeling of accomplishment that you get. I also miss being in a Spanish-speaking country. The thing about Poland is that most people here, especially the younger people, they all speak English. I don't feel a real desire to have to learn Polish. Spanish was always a dream of mine, and I put so much time and effort trying to get good at the language that, I don't know, I feel like just speaking Spanish brings out a totally different side of me. For people who speak multiple languages, it's almost like a different personality. And I like how I am when I speak Spanish. I feel like I'm a lot more open. I'm very flirtatious. I'm a Chinese Filipino guy who grew up in America with a Latin heart. Even though I didn't belong to Colombia, I felt amazing for the first few years that I was there, because it was like something I feel like I was tapping into myself by speaking the language and being a part of that culture. I also miss my dog. One of the things that I lost in the divorce, I adopted my dog, raised him from a puppy. Hopefully in the future, one day I'll be able to see Simba again. Man, I miss that dog so much. I know I talk a lot of bad about Colombia. I try to give a very balanced perspective in my videos, now looking back because it's been so long. I have so many fond memories of that country. That's where I built my channel. I got married there, and I'm sad that that didn't all pan out. Colombia will always still have a special place in my heart. I will never forget it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.